Welcome back to another tutorial. My name is Sharon. If you haven't been here before, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to create a design that would be brilliant for the centre of a table, or you could even use it in the church at the back of the altar. Now, if you've already seen my New Year's Day video, which I'll link here, so if you haven't seen it, pop back, you'll know that I purchased some baubles in the Christmas sale. And at the same time, I managed to find these really pretty little tea lights, which have an interesting smoky grey, taupe sort of colour to them. And I thought it would work really well with the base. Now, you've seen the base before. I've used it in one of the Christmas videos, and I'll link that for you to look back on if you haven't already seen that. But I thought the colourway was going to work really well together. Now, normally there would be a tea light, a small little tea light candle in there, but because I'm showing it to you and I'm tipping it forward, they're currently empty. And what I've tried to do is fairly equally balance that on the top of the arrangement. Now, this is fine for home use. Obviously, you need to be very careful of the candles so that they don't cause a fire. But if we were doing this for commercial use, then I would have to attach those candles far more securely there to the base. But I've tried to get one roughly in the centre and then two fairly equally spread out on either side. And I'm using tea lights because it's a new purchase for me. And it might be something that you haven't thought of doing before, but you could of course do this with taper candles or some church candles instead. And your container can be longer or shorter. You don't have to have exactly the same one as me. And my greenery of choice is leatherleaf, and this is a real florist, a commercial florist foliage. It's a very standard go-to foliage that lots of florists use. Fabulous for different styles of floral design. If you haven't got anything like this, anything you can get hold of will be suitable. And I've also got some tree fern, which is going to give me a lovely contrast. The texture is very different. The colour is similar, but the shape and the texture is very different. Think about choosing foliage from your garden or popping out to your florist shop to buy something like this. Now, what I've aimed to do is to pick some foliage, or cut my foliage rather, to roughly the same height as my container. It's just a gauge. Sometimes, you know, when you're learning, or maybe even when you're recovering the basics, it's sometimes easier to understand how designs come together and the proportions that we use. So I'm looking to go about as wide on either side as the height of my container. It's not set in stone. You can go shorter if you've got less material. You could go a little bit wider if you had more material to work with. And what I've done is I've cut the greenery to a fairly similar size before I started, and you'll see me do that in most of the tutorials that I do. If you've got greenery that's the same length to start with, then you know your design is going to be fairly evenly balanced on both sides. Now, I'm aiming to do this as a table centre, so I wanted to look fairly similar front and back, but you could do this one-sided if you were going to put it on an altar. And what you will see I've done is I've used parallel placement, so I haven't radiated everything out from a centre point. I've put them in a parallel style, so we end up with a rectangle shape similar to my container. If you do that radial pattern, and you'll see that in lots of other designs that I've done, then you will get more of a diamond or an oval shape. So I wanted to repeat the shape here of my container, and I'm going to come across the top. So far I've just come around the edge, and I'm using green floral foam today. There are videos on the website that you can refer back to if you don't want to use green floral foam. And we're just waiting on some of the fibre flora to be delivered, and then we can do some more arrangements for the new year using a more sustainably sourced floral foam. So right across the top, I'm bringing that same colour and the same texture. This could be eucalyptus, privet, could be ivy, whatever you can get hold of at whatever time of the year that you're in at the moment. I'm going to have to remove the candles just for a moment to tip it forward, but you can see I've come round the sides, covering the sides, and now I've randomly come across the top, adding just a small selection of greenery. And I didn't come up too far around the edge of my container because I don't want the top section to be overcrowded. So this is one of the asparagus ferns. There's lots and lots of different varieties. Will grow quite happily in a shaded area. You just need to avoid direct sunlight that will bake these very small little fronds. So you could quite easily grow this at home as a houseplant or in the garden if you've got a suitable environment. And just using small little pieces in that parallel style across the top. Now, if you're not sure what I mean by parallel and radial and you want to investigate floral design in more detail, then I have lots of courses that run online. You'll find them on the website. I'll link the details in the description box below. So there are pre-recorded lessons that you can purchase via the website. We have a 10-week autumn course. It's all ready to go, all ready for you to purchase. And that comes with some printable handouts. And I also have a 5-week Christmas course, which you'll find on the website. If you're struggling to find it, then you can email me on the address below and I'll send you some details. So that's my outline, pretty much done. I don't want to come too high so that we hide those candles, and maybe at the end I'll thin out this area here so that it doesn't come anywhere near the naked flame. Still a lot of foam showing, but I think that's going to work quite well as a base and a structure for my arrangement. Now it's the exciting time when we can get to put some flowers in. I've gone with a colour theme that's fairly similar to the candle. So I've picked a grey and a cream sort of shade, but just to lift it a little bit, I've gone with a very pale peach coloured carnation. I like to often start with a larger flower because this is the focal flower, and it's going to be quite formal because I've got that pattern already started with the candles. I'm now going to use the carnations in between those candles so that I get almost like a regimented style starting to take place. Then I'm going to introduce some along the edge, and you'll see more clearly now what I mean by a parallel design. So the flowers are all coming out at that 90-degree angle. They're not radiating away from that center point. 3 across there, and you don't have to make it as formal as I am. If you prefer the design to be a bit softer and the flowers to be looser, then go ahead and do that. It's just nice to see different ways that you can arrange flowers. Now I'm going to introduce a slightly smaller flower, and this is a rose. It's a tiny little rosebud. This has come from a local supermarket, and it's nice to see that, you know, you can create designs with supermarket flowers as well as florist bought flowers. Not everybody can get hold of a wide range of flowers, and sometimes you're a bit limited to what you can get. If you can't get a carnation like I've done here, consider buying a larger headed rose for the focal point and a smaller rose like I'm using as your sort of secondary flower. If you're lucky enough to have lots of foliage in the garden, you can use just foliage to create a design like this, and you can really use whatever you can get hold of. I'm going with quite a formal pattern in this arrangement because I think it suits the style of the box and the candle, my container and those candles. But you can use whatever you can get hold of. I know for many of you it's the springtime at the moment and you've got daffodils and tulips, you might have narcissi, ranunculus available. If it's the winter time like it is with me, and there's not a great deal of flowers available in the garden, then you might have to resort to buying flowers in just like I have done here. My last little rose. So now we have roses towards the top section, and then we have that colour brought all the way around there to the outside edge. Quite pretty, quite simple, easy to do with supermarket flowers, so don't let it put you off if you don't have the same flower choice as me. Now, to pick up a little bit of the grey colouring that's in my tea light holders, I've got some of the eryngium, and this is the white eryngium as opposed to the blue, which you see more often. And each head has maybe 3 or 4 flowers on it. So I'm going to cut them down, use them individually. Beautiful, almost like a little star-shaped flower. I'm going to use these individually, and I'm going to follow that sort of very regimented pattern and bring them from one side to the other. Now at the moment, this looks very much like a quite severe line from one side to the other, but I am going to introduce them a little bit lower down in a second. The Eryngium is really long lasting. It's a beautiful star-shaped sort of flower, and it contrasts really well against the rounder shapes that I've got in the design. So we've got something that's a different texture and a different shape. Okay, so I've done the same sort of positioning front to back, and it's a design that almost mirrors itself on either side. Quite a good one for beginners to do because it does follow quite a set pattern, and if you're a little bit nervous about arranging and you're not quite sure where to put the flowers, then this is a fairly good one to start with. It's not everybody's cup of tea. If you like designs that are looser and not quite as regimented and as formal as this, then you might want to do it in a completely different way. Right, so my last 2 little Eryngium, I'm just going to pop on the side so that colour and that texture and shape is followed through all the way to the end. Now I still have quite a lot of foam showing, and we're going to cover that in just a second. I just wanted to emphasise that I wanted a rectangular shape, repeating the shape of my container rather than that sort of diamond or oval shape that you'll have seen me do many times before. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'll link back here to one of the Christmas designs, and then you'll understand the sort of theory behind it. And I quite often say it's my last flower, and then I end up adding more, but I think today this really is my last flower. And it's just your ordinary chrysanthemum that you can get again from a supermarket. This is one that's come from Aldi, so possibly something that you can all get hold of, and it's a salmony pink tone. So this is going to go quite low down. I'm going to use the individual flower heads, and I'm going to tuck them down quite low. This helps to give us depth in this type of arrangement. It is a technique called recession. Make sure I draw down into the base of the arrangement and emphasises the different levels you have within the arrangement. Stops the design becoming really flat, and so it's placing material at a lower level, helps to cover the foam as well, so it works quite well. And my final 2 flowers, I think, we're going to pop them snugly on the end so that we've got that colour running all the way from front to back. You probably can't see from the camera angle, but there is a little bit of floral foam to cover. So I'll do that before I take the photo. But that's another design finished. Fantastic for a table centre. It would work well on a buffet table as well. And you can be as creative as you want with the different types of flowers that you can get hold of. So thank you as ever for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so that you're notified every time I upload a new tutorial. Comment in the box below because it really does help other people find the videos, and it also tells YouTube that I'm producing content of interest. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.